Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about, well, refactoring code. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, is the saying, if it's not broken, don't fix it, does that apply to refactoring code in software engineering? Yep, I would say. Uh, But I like to say that there are two sort of ways to interpret that. One is the one that I think that you should sort of like, that's, I think, the one that captures the heart and soul of the thing. And the other one is the thing that people sort of do because of, well, I can touch on why it's going on. So let's talk about the one that I think that you should be doing first and foremost. The thing that I think you should be doing first and foremost is that uh, one urge that might capture you at some point as a software developer is for you to go and refactor things that are not so nice, or you might want to experiment with things or do make these sorts of improvements. Now, the thing that will be tricky for you is to determine what is an improvement that is useful and really brings some value, and what is an improvement that might actually, in many cases, just be something like a spur at the moment type of thing. It's not something that is going to be long lasting, really. It's not something that you're really going to gain all that much from. Like, where do you draw the line between an improvement that is nice to have and one that actually makes the difference and makes well, brings a lot of benefits, right? The reason why it's very important to know about that is because when you refactor or when you try to update things, there are quite a lot of us that have this tendency to spend a lot of time on refactoring things that are actually working. And the reason why we're doing it is more because there's a style we might not like, or there's something very subjective about the code that doesn't really tickle us the right way. And so we spend a lot of time just basically shuffling code around without much of a difference in terms of results or output or stability or anything like that. This is why I try to preach a little bit for people to, if you want to keep yourself honest when you're going to do that refactor or you're going to fix things or so forth, you have to in some way find something meaningful and measurable that will be improved in the end output. And that helps a little bit, but this is sort of, in my opinion, this is such a big problem in IT that it really only comes with personal maturity, I think, because you will always be able to justify to yourself why something looks a certain way. It's always the case. Like people, I have my own saying, which I say, where I say, never underestimate people's ability to justify their own actions, because you can always justify whatever you're doing if you really want to, and that's sort of what happens when you even try to apply this rule. But it's, at the very least, it's helped me. And so this is a good case of where if it's not broken, don't fix it. So if you have something that is, I mean, where you could improve a few things here and there, but it's not really a problem for you, it's not really causing any issues, it doesn't really affect any end output or something like that, then maybe you should focus on things that will bring more value, because you can always remake things, right? You can do tons of stuff that may or may not be useful, but yeah, let's try to, I think that you should prioritize things that makes a difference. And then we have the one that isn't so good, which is that basically you have people who have a more apathetic view of their work, where, for example, they have a lot of legacy or they have a lot of problems, and they can technically get things to work in the code, but it's painful, it's error prone, it's buggy, it causes regressions very often when they ship things and so forth, and they sort of avoid trying to fix things. It's a very common pattern what I see, where people, I call it shim programming, where I was actually talking to a new coworker of mine the other day about that, where I was saying that because he was talking about his old job, and he was saying that he wanted to work in a more qualitative fashion, because at his old job basically just, they didn't care about anything, like they didn't care about testing, or like they just wanted to get things done. And I said, yeah, I completely understand sort of like where you're coming from. And the thing is, I usually I keep track of what software developers I work with, where if I give you a story and you're going to change something about a component or some existing code, and I see that you don't actually try to fix the component. If there's a very ugly component or something like that, you're not going to you don't Boy Scout at all. Like you're basically just trying to fit, which is the shimming part. Like it's like one of those puzzles, or trying to take a piece from the from the tower without making it fall over. You're just trying to figure out how you can do the thing you want to do without changing anything about the code, and you don't actually try to fix the problem. You're just trying to add to it, or add the thing that you're going to do to it, so that you can ship your story, because it's for some reason not within what usually I see at the very least, people don't want to change it because either they feel like they can't change it, or because they don't want to, because they're more they're more scared of not meeting the deadline or something like that than they are dealing with legacy code and things like that, right? And so that's the thing that I think you should not be doing, because what then happens is that, as I said, it becomes like figuring out a puzzle. You're just trying to fit that feature in now, and then it adds to the problem. And so what I try to coach people into understanding is that a refactor, or like fix it, if it's not broken, don't fix it. It really is it's freedom under responsibility. You have to sort of know when you're dealing with something that is really bad, and maybe even broken in many cases, and where it's appropriate for you to make an investment and actually try to fix this thing, and when it's more about you wanting to try out something really cool because you kind of feel like it. That's what I suggest to people. So what I want you to take away from this is that if it's not broken, don't fix it. Absolutely apply to refactors in software engineering. And I think that you should, in my opinion at the very least, you should think about it as it's a question of why are you making this fix or refactoring this code, or so forth and so forth, and trying to be a little bit honest with yourself when you're doing so. Are you making a meaningful improvement here, or is something that is actually not working all that well is that going to be improved? A classic one is that I sort of, to give you an illustration of the examples that I usually see, is that there's a lot of people who will come up with a new cool tool that they can use in the CI pipeline, or a new cool CLI, or like a library or something like that that does something for them. But if you, on an average day, they will never ever refactor a piece of software and add unit tests to it without being basically quote unquote forced to do that. That's the difference I'm talking about. If you are the sort of person who on an average day can see that, yeah, I'm trying to update this feature and it has a lot of problems, and like it might not even be working properly, and you add a few unit tests to it, or like change it around a little bit so that it works, and you test it basically, that's a good indicator that you're actually doing the sort of Boy Scouting that you should be doing. But if you always have these grand ideas of how to like rewrite like the entire code base, or like it's always about finding a new tool or a new practice or something like that to apply, it might be the case that, as I was saying, like you're fixing things that may not actually be broken, and I think it's a good investment for you. It's going to serve you long term if you get to a point where you sort of understand what things that you should try to fix, and what things you should basically just say that, yeah, these are it's not the best way of doing it perhaps, but it's still a decent solution. Have a great day.